Hello and welcome to another episode of the Basildon Council official podcast, a place where you guys, our residents, can find out a bit more that's happening in your borough that affects your everyday lives. I'm your host, Ryan, and today I'm happy to say that joining me is Pam Green, Alliance Director for Basildon and Brentwood. Hello Pam, how are you? Are you good?
Yeah, good to be with you today. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. We have been having a little chat sort of before we start recording. You've done podcasting and media stuff before, so this shouldn't be too out of nowhere.
Well, might be a bit rusty though, so you'll have to pick me up if I'm not going in the right direction. So.
I'm sure we're going to be absolutely fine. So, Pam, I mentioned your title being Alliance Director of Basildon and Brentwood. I'd like to sort of, before we get to the really nice fancy title, find out a little bit more about yourself. Something we've been doing with a lot of our guests is to try and get our residents to understand who our guests are. It's not just about sort of what you do and how it maybe affects everyone that's watching, but also we are people and we've all got a background and we've all got a journey that we got to where we are now. So if you're happy to talk about it, sort of who are you and what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for that opportunity. I'm really passionate about being human as leader as well, so it's nice to be asked that question. So I'm a physiotherapist by trade. I specialised in head injuries and stroke, and really loved that work, working with lots of different teams, lots of different people around charities, local authorities when people have experienced very significant strokes. That led me into quite a lot of work around the stroke strategy and developing stroke units where people get really good care very quickly, and as a therapist getting them home very quickly. And that challenged the traditional model of healthcare. I've been in the NHS for nearly 25 years. I've seen so many changes over that time. But I'm a mum. I'm a carer for my dad who's got a long-term neurological condition. I love sport when I can do it, but I don't get as much chance to do it. I love to walk. I've got 2 dogs. I breed Labradors very occasionally, and absolutely love being out in the outdoors where I can. I actually live in Brightlingsea, and I was really drawn to work in Basildon and Brentwood because of the opportunities around here, the excitement, Find Your Active Basildon, which we'll talk about later. Essex is my cultural home. I found an affinity when I moved here. I'm actually from Northamptonshire originally. Met an Essex boy in Wales, and the rest is absolute history.
Wow, what interesting. You met an Essex boy, but in Wales and Northamptonshire. I went to university in Northamptonshire. It's all coming together. There you go. That's brilliant. So what got you into Alliance? So how did we get to this point, and what does Alliance do, if we can sort of cover a broad spectrum of things there?
Absolutely. So some people might remember terms like primary care trusts, clinical commissioning groups, CCGs. They're the fund holders of the NHS money at a local place, and last year in July, the NHS reconfigured again, which it tends to do. It does it quite often, and created integrated care boards for the purpose that health is only part of somebody's makeup. So people don't live in a health bubble only. Whether people are well and have good well-being is generally around, have they got a decent house, have they got a friend, have they got a job or decent access to education. So we know that the place actually is what we need to look at and how we work together. And this is now part of the kind of rules around these integrated care boards, to start to be that partnership lead to bring organisations together. So instead of us all dealing with one person in separate kind of organisations, the council housing office dealing with them, the occupational therapists dealing with them, actually we start to bring our services together, and we're much more focused around people as opposed to diseases. So the reason why it's important that I mentioned that stroke is my background is I think that gave me a unique opportunity to see that one day somebody's well, the next day they've had a very severe stroke, they lose their job, often their housing needs adapting, their families become carers and they weren't the day before. So I've got an insight into why we need to pull all the organisations together, and the great value that communities and voluntary sector organisations can bring to the NHS world and people generally. So this is just, the Alliance is that on a bigger scale, really. I work constantly with Grant, Taya here, looking at building communities, and because we know if people have got really good connection with their communities, they're better, they're healthier, their mental health is better, and they can advocate for them. They've got real power and agency when they're talking to us from their community, and we need to listen to that.
So in essence, it is an alliance of so many different things that can come together and help people. Like you say, it's not just health, it's so many other things that can help people.
It's a real conscious thought not to do health by health on its own. It's about looking at well-being for the whole of the population with all the partners that touch on that. And I lead bringing that together, having difficult conversations, challenging, bringing the partnerships, creating the right culture. And I absolutely love it. I have to say, I absolutely love it. It gives me an opportunity to work with so many different people and the communities directly.
Now, I was going to ask you, like, in your role as a director there, what are some challenges? Like, are there anything that like just frustrates you? What more do you want to do, or do you think you could?
So, not everybody believes that working in this way is going to release time and make their life, their job easier. Actually, when I start talking about why should we integrate, why should we set up teams together, I often say, if you leave your work happier at the end of the day and not worrying about people so much, actually I'm good with that. We lose so many staff from our organisations because of the stress. GPs going home at the end of the day worrying about their patients, worrying that they haven't offered enough access. And I know that's not always the perception of general practice. I do a lot of work with general practice and our GP practices and supporting them to change. And I know there's frustrations around getting people in the door. But actually what we see is 30 to 40% of what comes through a GP practice is related to housing or benefits advice or anxiety because of community issues like disruptive neighbours and those sorts of things impacting on people's health. They go to their GP because they're trusted. Now actually what we need to do is work closer together so that we can support people with the right skills, because believe it or not, GPs don't train in housing. They don't have those skills, so directing people to the right support first time through that trusted route, which is the GP practice, the family GP practice, which people still feel very strong connection with, is what we're trying to do.
I think quite a lot of people would find that surprising when we think of health. You think sickness, bugs, all that kind of stuff, but you don't necessarily equate that with things like your housing situation or your economic situation and how that can affect it. I find that interesting. That is a factor. Yeah.
So there's some research from Wisconsin University. And it's called the Robert Wood Johnson theory, and it is as research what actually impacts on people's well-being, and 80% of somebody's well-being is associated with things non-health related. So economic stability, housing, the community and connection that they live with, their family relationships, whether they take up things like alcohol, smoking, things like the preventable things that are often a consequence of stress or choices that have come about through some other
and could sometimes be coping mechanisms.
Absolutely. So only 20% of somebody's health is related to the services that I buy on behalf of the population. And when you put it in that context, absolutely we have to work together. Absolutely we have to be making impact on children and their relationship with exercise and their resilience and being out in the environment and taking exercise on a daily basis. We absolutely have to get that right. We have to think about our planning of our communities and green space, which Basildon Council does so much about, and is really innovative in the design and support, because it's a new town. You know, actually we've got a real opportunity to take on that basis if we can all you know, pull together on that front. But that prevention agenda, you know, setting good behaviours really early is so important.
Yeah, you mentioned sort of green spaces. It's something that, you know, I know, having worked with the council now, it's something that we're very, very proud of, green spaces, and trying to look after them as much as possible and promote them, get people to go out and sort of explore them. And as someone who lives in the boroughs myself, I've explored a lot of these places and they are fantastic. So it is good. I wondered if, maybe to put you on the spot somewhat, to ask, almost in layman's terms, how this could affect our residents. So on a day-to-day, like, how does this make things better for them?
Yeah, so what it should do is connect all the organisations together much more, so that actually teams, when we need to connect together, have got relationships. So much less about filling in forms and referring to the council, and it's, you know, filling in a form to refer to some other organisation, even within the NHS. So it should make us much more connected. So reducing the waste of time and the frustration that our citizens experience with services. I think I speak to people all the time and they say, well, I went there and then I was told to go there, and
push
then
and pillar to
somebody
post
said,
and
okay.
whatnot. Yeah.
So actually, if we're all working together and we can just pick up the phone to each other and say, I've got a bit of an issue with this, Mr. Jones has come in and I don't quite know what to do, and they signpost you to the right place first time, that should reduce the, you know, waste of people's time and build confidence. You know, we recognise that trust is not as high as it was, particularly post-COVID, with organisations like the NHS and GP practices. I know that. And actually what we've got to do is build that trust. We've got a unique opportunity with our communities here, and we need to take it now. Yeah,
I'm aware that for a lot of people, you know, waiting times can be ridiculous, you know, for some people when they're dealing with some things. And I imagine, you know, for instance, there could be someone who's in hospital that maybe needs some help with housing once they come out of hospital. This would be one of those examples where, you know, the NHS could then contact the council and say, look, we've got a patient who needs help. Can we just get on with that and sort that, rather than, you know, leaving someone to suffer and deal with that on their own?
Yeah, so we're reaching into the hospital with our colleagues in housing. Kirsty O'Connell here has been supporting us to learn more about housing, so that we don't waste each other's time, so that we can pick up the phone to each other and say, you know, what should we do in this situation, rather than sending off a blind referral and trying to add somebody to the housing list that's, you know, realistically they're not going to get a house. So, you know, really working on those principles of how do we help up front, instead of waiting to the end of a conversation to say, oh, perhaps it would be a good idea to have a conversation with the council. And coordinating that, and just being much more coordinated in the way that we work. Changing the culture so that we're not just about medicalising everybody as well. So, you know, the fact that we've got all the resources around Find Your Active Basildon is brilliant. It's absolutely unique. So directing people from the GP practice directly into walking groups, buggy groups, mental health walks, bereavement walks, that's so much more effective than prescribing an antidepressant and leaving somebody isolated. And we really want to get this sort of cultural approach. Support within neighbourhoods, you know, making sure that people feel safe in their environment. You know, as a young physio, I'm sure I told lots of people to go out and walk after their hip replacements, not thinking once to ask whether did they feel safe to go out into their environment. And then when they came back, probably feeling a little bit, you know, frustrated when they tell me they haven't walked as much as I'd kind of asked them to. Well, that's, again, that changes the outcome from your hip replacement if you don't feel confident to get out there and walk, or you don't have a friend to go with, or somebody that says, come on, I'll hold your hand and help you down the steps for the first time. You know, they're the things that make such a huge difference to people's lives and their well-being.
Well, it sounds very positive, and I'm very happy and excited to see where it goes. You've mentioned a couple of times Find Your Active. Now, we post fairly regularly on Find Your Active as a big initiative that's going on at the moment. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more on what Find Your Active is, sort of like how does it affect people, and maybe sort of the importance of being active.
So I'm really proud to say that I was actually on the panel at Wat Tyler Country Park when Sport England came and did their final visit to say whether we would get the legacy funds from the Olympics to implement this way of working. And I was heavily pregnant, so I will never ever forget how old Find Your Active Basildon is, even if it was called other things before that. And as a physiotherapist, I've spent a career treating problems, pain, discomfort associated with not moving enough. So for me, the concept of moving and the connection that can give people with other groups, with peers, with making friends, with changing their view around their isolation, anxiety, all of those sorts of things through the medium of sport. Well, not even sport, but just getting active,
maybe even
out
a walk.
And about.
Yeah.
Because I think we don't need to use the term sport. We just need to, active. Being active can be from gardening to ballroom dancing to full on, training for a triathlon, whatever that might be. But just supporting people to get there. It's so good for mental health, weight loss, connection with people, that I think it's our absolute jewel in our crown here. And it gets people to explore, like you said, the green spaces, and it reclaims those spaces. It makes them feel safer once more people are using them, and that is really important for generations below us, that they feel safe to go into their parks and exercise or make connection. So I'm really delighted that we've got it here. I think we should be really proud of what we've achieved. The fact that physical activity is non-judgmental. It doesn't see race, it doesn't see disability. Actually, we can use that medium to connect people back into things and have a different, trusted conversation with them. I think is absolutely the most important thing. And it's one of the reasons that I came to work in Basildon, that legacy fund was here for us to really do something different and change the conversations that we have.
And you mentioned that it's not about sport per se. It's not about playing a game of sorts and all that. It is just being active, and that could be, like you say, simply anything. Gardening, just go for a walk. Instead of maybe drive to the shop, walk to the shop. Just something to keep yourself going a little bit, and that can just encourage so many different things. One thing that we've noticed and really love to promote is that just by being active and doing something can be a social experience. It can be something that really benefits our mental health. So
absolutely,
just doing anything is better than doing nothing.
And we tried for many years to get this concept into GP practices. We had something called green prescriptions, and it just didn't go well enough. And actually, because we've done the change, the culture, the leadership within all of the organisations as part of the Alliance is about being physically active. We're talking about it much more. We see the benefits of it. We look, we should be looking after all of our own staff as well, to say, actually, are they ambassadors of being physically active in their roles when they have a conversation with our public or not? Because it is, absolutely changes how many drugs we prescribe to people. We've seen the benefits with diabetes, that you can reverse type 2 diabetes by being much more physically active and having a good diet. And once you get the motivation to say, I'm physically active, people start to think, perhaps I should think about what I'm eating, and I feel a bit better about it. I feel like I can achieve something. That's huge for people's well-being and their confidence, self-confidence. Absolutely huge.
Yeah. No, it makes me happy sort of talking about this, being like, they're just get out and get active, and I'm doing, and I'm aware as well, for some people it can be more challenging than others, but there are, like I say, it's not about sport, it's just about doing something, so whatever helps yourself, whatever is easy for you, just give it a go, try it, and we'll see some benefits from it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in, being able to talk about Alliance, Find Your Active, and just everything that will benefit us, people that live in the borough. So thank you very much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching again. I do hope you enjoyed hearing what Pam has to say about Alliance, Find Your Active, and everything around those areas. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here.